special guest joining us for the conversation today.
We do.
I'm so excited.
Sanaz. This is gonna be good. we got Sanaz gonna share some stuff.
Oh,
Well,
man.
people don't know Sanaz is a TikTok sensation.
Oh, my gosh.
So we're learning from her.
Yep.
Because we're new to this whole game, social media game. And
she's got like how many followers you got on TikTok?
Listen, I'm not like TikTok famous. I have 22.2 thousand.
She knows the exact number.
You know,
Listen, it's not my thing, but
237. Thank you.
When I checked 30 seconds ago, 0.2 could be 0.3.
But what's
now.
your most viewed video?
I have two ones there's one that's 3 million views, and then my most recent is 2.5, I think.
Wow.
Teach us your ways,
I know.
master.
You know,
We got our
Impressive.
first post that went like 16,000 views.
That's amazing.
And all the comments were teenagers, which I'm so happy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, they're like, because we were talking about manhood, so they were all like
okay.
teenage, or we were talking about masculinity.
Marvel.
Yeah,
Oh, the Marvel. Mm-hmm.
so they could, everyone could start calling me Padre now.
Oh, yeah.
Just call me Father, Padre.
All right.
Giving all the
so-
young men them advice. Padre Adam, it's Padre Pio, Padre Adam, and Padre Caleb. And then I don't think you want to be a nun.
No.
So.
I'll be all right. Me and my 22.2 thousand followers will be over here.
It's a big deal
So
because
tell
in
us,
TikTok it's
what's
real
the
organic.
content?
You know,
What's your type of content you like to do?
I didn't study TikTok, but I really wanted to learn sort of how the algorithm works and how you do go viral on TikTok, because I joined just like every other mom of kids in March in 2020 when I was just bored with my kids at home and we were just doing dance
Yeah.
videos. And so I was like, how does this even work? Like, how do people go viral? So I kind of just studied the algorithm a little bit. And what I learned is, in order for you to like be a TikTok star, which I have no interest in being because it's way too time consuming, but you really have to like follow a niche. Like, you have to have one particular thing that you do on TikTok. But I kind of just do whatever. I'll do like a reaction video. I'll do like a funny one. The ones that have actually had more than 2 million views, I'm not even speaking in any of them. It's just me reacting to something.
Wow.
And the shorter the video, the more views you have, and it just depends on when you post and things like that. But
hashtags.
the hashtags that you use. So like I one of the videos that I posted was a Mother's Day post, but I posted it a week before Mother's Day. Because the second you go past a certain time, it's not going to work. Trends, you have to jump on it like the first day or two. You see like a sound that's getting trending. If you wait 3-4 days, it's already obsolete. It's already on its way out.
Yeah,
so,
shelf life. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, this is going to be good then, because Sanaz is going to be good TikTok clips for us today.
oh goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing. We're not interviewing Sanaz. Sanaz is joining us on occasion from time to time. Me and Caleb are going to have friends on here or relatives vis-a-vis who will join us for the conversations that we have. And then, like you guys just saw this weekend, a couple weekends ago, we interviewed Lana Vasquez. So we have interviews, stuff like that. So today we have joining us, me and Caleb's sister-in-law, our oldest brother's wife, who's going to join us in the Beyond the Letter conversation. And so, Gabe, why don't you serve us up? Is that Gabe today that we have with us? Is there?
Me.
Oh yeah, there he is. There he is. I even disappeared lately. There you are. All right, man. What's the first thing you got to serve us up today that we're gonna be talking about?
Schools grooming our kids while they're in school.
Oh, this again.
Oh man, did we just do this?
In the church last week.
We did the church.
The
Now
church
it's the
one.
education
Now it's
system.
Time for us to take this power back. We need more parents to speak up, like my next guest. Here's her response when she found out what kind of book was in her 7th grader's classroom. Watch.
I'm going to read from Chapter 9, The Ins and Outs of Gay Sex, starting at page 201, Part 1, Boy-on-Boy Sex. Perhaps the most important skill you will master as a gay or bi man is a timeless classic. Good news is you can practice it on yourself. Any teacher that puts material like this on his or her bookshelf is either a bad teacher or a pedophile who grooms children. 2 minutes are up. Thank you. We will vote you out November 8th. You are not leader. I'm not.
Christy Wade and Brooke Weiss are parents with the group Moms for Liberty. So, Christy, what did the school board say when you read that graphic material from a book that was in the class?
Well, they actually didn't say anything. In fact, the chair chimed in saying that she wasn't even on the ballot for this election, which is essentially shirking all accountability for their actions. And they just don't care, quite honestly.
Okay.
Man.
Y'all just really trying to get me in here, coming in hot.
Corey did left field. What grade was that? 7th grade, they said?
Yeah, seventh grade. So what is that, 12? I think that's 12. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, junior high.
I have an 11-year-old, so that's my daughter's age about.
Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine that.
Ooh, what are your thoughts, Sanaz?
Well, okay. My thoughts are this. You know, back in the day when I was in school, we had sex ed. But it wasn't about sex. It was about reproduction. It was about what you do to produce a baby. This is what it was. It wasn't about you're going to lay with this person. I never was taught how to have sex ever in school. That was never taught. So if we are supposed to be teaching the children how to reproduce, because that's something that's really important for people to know, how to reproduce and how to avoid reproducing as they get older, that has absolutely nothing to do with reproductive education. Nothing.
Yeah.
So that makes no sense to me. Our children are not sexual beings.
Right.
They're not sexual beings, and they should not be taught in any capacity, a gay capacity or a straight capacity, how to become a sexual being.
Yeah.
They have to be taught reproductive processes, how to make the embryo and the zygote and all of those things. That's science. But teaching them how to have sex is not necessary and should not be in the schools, period.
Yeah.
Right.
I think what people have to notice, and I think it's relevant why we kind of continue to have conversations around just different aspects of this, because it's happening in so many different areas of society. Whether you're at a market, and especially for us, like we all live in California, so this is kind of the front lines of whatever happens in there's a saying where California goes, America goes with it. So it's like California is kind of the hub of taste making, culture making, movies, everything. It's kind of California dictates, like wherever California's at in 4 to 5 years, chances are that's where like majority of America will follow. And, you know, I think what we're seeing is people have to realize the degradation and how fast this is happening in America. And it's nothing new. Any culture that begins to deconstruct really traditional aspects of the culture, i.e. as they kind of culturally welcome in homosexuality, as they culturally welcome in polygamous relationships, which is really big conversations right now, that people are saying, everyone, the upside down pineapple, and you know, every husband should have a girlfriend and every wife should have a boyfriend. And because what's happening is there's no parameters on how far you can degrade yourself.
Pastor, I'm sorry. What's a pineapple? Can you explain that?
Oh,
well, right now, yeah,
I know it's not
right now in like the polygamy culture. So if you're a person that's open to having, you know, multiple boyfriends and girlfriends, even as you're married, is one of the key symbols is a pineapple upside down. So if you ever walk by someone's house and they have a foot mat at their door, if the pineapple is upside down, or sometimes like couples will go on cruises. So watch this next time you go on a cruise. Walk down the hallway. I just went on a cruise about 2 months ago and I saw it. Jeez. You walk down the hallway, and because the doors are metal, the people will have an upside down pineapple like a magnet on their door, and it's supposed to signify that we swing here, like we're swingers, right? It's huge right now in America.
Notice every pineapple. I know. I love pineapples.
And there's a saying: just look out the way you place your pineapple next time you buy it. So if you're in a grocery store,
everything, I'm putting that thing straight up.
If you're just buy it from the Michoacana from now on. Just have it pre-cut. Don't buy it whole.
Why you gotta say Michoacana? Because I'm Hispanic. Dang. Why did you say Baskin Robbins?
Don't bring race into this, because I live at the Michoacana. Dude, the Michoacana that smells like Lysol and Pine Sol and everything like that.
Fabuloso.
So even if you're in a grocery store, like if you're in a grocery store, a woman may have a pineapple upside down while she's in the shopping cart, and people are looking. Like if you're looking for it, you'll see it. And I've never been searching.
I didn't know this.
Oh yeah, dude, it's crazy.
You learn something new.
Yeah,
every
man,
day,
it's
huh?
big in Utah too.
I'm sure it
It's
is.
in Utah. But regardless, right?
Yeah.
You saw those Utah TikTokers, right? They were all swinging with each other. It was like 8. They all look like models, the husbands and the wives. You
Okay.
probably know that.
Yeah,
You're
I
the
know.
TikTok queen.
Yeah.
So
Hashtag mom talk. That's how you
Yeah.
find it.
yeah.
I
So
mean, don't go. Sorry.
It's huge. Yeah,
Don't go
don't
looking
super
for
far.
it.
But it's huge right now, polygamy. Because here's what happens is, and we're circular. Like you just go study Rome. And what a lot of people don't realize about Constantine's this guy who made Christianity, all across the world, and he spread it through the empire of Rome. But the main reason, part of me argues, Constantine never was a Christian nor wanted to be a Christian. What Constantine wanted to do was he wanted to preserve Rome. And in 300 AD, by time Constantine becomes the ruler, what happens is that Rome had degraded so fast because they started, at first Rome started very traditional, like in the days of Jesus, right? So that's 30 AD and stuff like that. They had husbands, they had wives, and then what happens is they start saying, well, maybe our wives could have boyfriends, maybe our girls can have, maybe our husbands can have boyfriends, and then they start going, well, maybe my wife can have a girlfriend, maybe my husband can have a boyfriend, right? So now they start going into homosexuality and bisexuality and things like that. Then they start to say, well, what about the kids? The kids are the purest. Like they're all virgins. They're all, and so we talked about last time, there's a saying in Rome that says women are for procreation and little boys are for pleasure. We know Nero used to have babies bite him and lick him in his private parts, Emperor Nero. Like, so in Rome, it had gotten so crazy, that in America, because of the advent of technology, in Rome, it took 150 years to degrade.
Sure.
In America, because of technology, you started in the 90s, you started these kind of changing of policies and laws to now we're in 2022. We're only like 25 years from kind of the advent of policy making in terms of pedophilia and homosexuality and things like that. And where are we already at? We're watching a video of a mother who read her son's curriculum in front of a school board and in front of a council, read the curriculum where he's being taught on how to rightly please and how to please himself and how to please if he's gay and how to please if he's straight, that it went that fast. I mean, we're talking just in short years. It went from what seemed to be...
Where that would be criminal behavior, where for a teacher to expose that sort of material in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, that would have been criminal.
Or
now
even
it's-
our age in 2012,
Yeah, like even yeah.
or 2002, like it would have been, if a teacher said anything like that in 2003, that teacher would be on the front page of the newspaper.
Sure.
And now it's absolutely, you're trying to make it normal. And so you're talking about LGBTQ policies just kind of 6 or 7 years ago that were seen as civil rights issues.
Right.
It was like, hey, we just have the right to marry and all, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Go
And if
ahead,
you talk
know?
to those people, the original people who in my time were at the forefront of changing those laws and changing those policies because it was a civil rights issue, they wanted their rights. They're looking back now and they're saying, this
What
is
happened?
getting out of hand, and
What
this
have we
is
done?
not what we were fighting for. Because now
Yeah.
you're talking about this slippery slope, and it's just like, well, if we can get away with this, and then what about this, and what about this? And now there's this big thing about a quote unquote minor attracted people and destigmatizing minor attracted people. It's a pedophile. It's
Right,
a
yeah.
predator.
Right.
Call it what it is. But this is the way that we're going. As soon as you start letting more and more things happen to our children, this is where it's gonna end up.
But we
And
don't have
that's
any
what they
boundaries.
say. That's what they say. The plus is it's like a subversive. We're going to say LGBTQ plus, and we should all know what the plus is. The plus is pedophilia. The plus is bestiality. The plus is whatever you want it to be. you know, because the very in order to be faithful to the progressive ideal, you have to constantly be pushing the boundaries, constantly be progressing beyond the current norms. So where do you stop? If your foundations are atheistic, you have no moral standard, and your politic is a progressive politic, there's no end to the degeneracy and the depravity. And so just to disagree with you, I'm a big fan of Constantine. I think he was a based king, and he brought Christianity to the forefront. And
why did he do it?
And made the world.
Why did he do it?
Made the world acknowledge Christ is king. And so I salute him. I salute him in any.
You're a bum.
I salute him in any president. I salute him in any ruler of any land
who's paying
who proclaims
you right now to
Christ is king. God bless you. God be with you
right now.
But yeah. So, anyways, with that out of the way, I'm all for leaders.
His mom
leaders.
Was the real deal.
I'm all for leaders who stand up and say Christ is king. And you know, his conversion story was he saw the cross in the heavens. And it was Christ
came down in a glowing
beckoning him to believe, and he believed, and he led his country, he led his
Donald
nation
Trump's salvation
into.
Story
hey, I didn't say Donald Trump. You said Donald Trump. I'm talking about a 4th century amazing king and ruler named Constantine. But yeah, it did get abused. That's not to say because once Christianity got into power, but this is beyond the topic. But anyways, it did get abused because they abused it. Okay,
everything will get abused. Can I say one thing though?
So what?
Can I say one thing though? Christianity, we agree, it's a positive thing for culture.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why Constantine did it. He was smart enough to recognize.
But we don't know his heart though. That's what I'm saying.
I do.
Don't speak ill of the dead. 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 Listen. Okay, so we can argue about Constantine for the next hour.
Are you related to Constantine?
I did an ancestry, and I do have a little.
Because you're taking this 1%. You're taking this as if I.
But I want to go back to the LGBTQ plus. Let's go back to child grooming because that's the topic.
Constantine's phone.
All right,
let's go.
How did we get here?
So this is the thing.
He's a Constantine fanboy, and I called it out.
It's because you don't know his heart. The guy did good things for the church. So anyways, what was I saying? So
child grooming.
Back to child grooming. So, okay, every society is going to have a religion. You can't not have a religion. You can be atheistic all you want, but at the end of the day, you're going to implement some form of religion. And this is the religion of secular atheism in our country today. And it's becoming this tyrannical, oppressive, under the umbrella of often under LGBTQ plus. And that's the thing. It's like, we're not saying gays are going to hell, gays are evil, we hate gays or anything like that. That's a whole nother discussion as far as how the Bible defines homosexuality. But right now within this confines I think we can all unite around the fact that children should not be sexualized. Children should not be groomed. Children, and so I think it is appropriate for all parents who are aware, and this is getting into a practical motivation or encouragement. Any parents who are aware that their current school, what do they call them? School districts are doing this sort of thing. The time for being asleep is over. The time for being asleep, for just letting the county, letting the government control our lives or just having a blind eye to what's going on in the world, it's over. And so we have to be aware what's going on in our schools, what's going on in every aspect of life. And so, find out in your schools, go on, be a detective, find out what's in the libraries, find out what they're teaching your children. And if they're doing this sort of thing, rise up, come together with other parents who are against this, show up to the school board meetings, and demand that this be put to an end.
And I think people who identify as LGBT, who are within that culture and that community, they they should agree on the same thing, and they should stand up.
And I
with
think
that
a
too,
lot of them do.
Yeah,
I think a lot of them do. And I think a lot of it is you have this community who, like we said earlier, just wanted some rights back in the day. They're even raising children. And then you have this group of predators. I'm just going to call them predators, who are under the guise of the LGBTQ community are maybe they're not even a part of the community, but they're saying like, this is a way for us to get into the schools and get into the children and indoctrinate them in this way. And it's leaving the true LGBTQ community who is just trying to, live their life or whatnot. And they're unfortunately being blamed for, because I've met a lot and I've seen a lot of people who are saying, this is not what we wanted. This is not what we believe in. This is not what we want for our children. I need to protect my children because they're not sexual beings and they shouldn't be exposed to any of this at any time during school. That's not the place for
And
it.
there's a group that we talked about last week called Gays Against Groomers. Have you heard about this group?
I haven't.
Well, they were banned and censored through all social media platforms because their only mission was to shed light on stuff like this and distance themselves from it and say, this is not a part of our movement. This is not a part what we fought for, gay rights, and all everything. We never intended this to be an allowance to over sexualize children, and to groom children. But but they are becoming successful because when you look at the stats now, it's something like 20-something% now of Gen Z and teenagers up to Gen Z are now identifying in that community. So the question is, well, how do we explain that? Is that just a product of, it's more accepted now, so now those who are born that way are just more free to come out? Or is it a product of grooming because it is going against nature? It has to be taught. It has to be, and then there's a controversial aspect of homosexuality that, how is that? Are they born with it, or is it a product of something else? But that's a separate discussion. But yeah,
I think one of the biggest things is as you loosen the boundaries and you loosen the parameters for it, which is where the issue we're getting. There's no boundaries. We're always, humans push everything to the limit. We try to build the highest skyscrapers. We try to build the fastest cars. We try to get the smartest phones. What do we keep doing? Every year, Apple keeps telling us we're making the camera better. We're making the camera better. It's like, how they already know how good they can make this camera. Yeah. The problem is if they do it, people will just buy this phone and I'll hold on to this phone for 9 years.
They have the next 10 of them already set up.
So they go, okay, in this iteration, we're going to do this. We're going to do it. Why? Because it's a bait and switch. It's a hook. We keep pushing the envelope. So the moment you push the envelope on sexuality and you say no parameters, there's always going to be a group of people, which right now they're the loudest, like the group of individuals who consider themselves to be LGBTQ plus activists are the loudest. The problem is it's not organized. There's no leader of that community. There's no leader of that organization. So anyone can stand up and say, hey, I'm a leader in the LGBTQ community. Well, who made you that? Did they vote for you? Did they? No, that's how I self-identify. So they can represent as a leader of it and then go, and on behalf of my community, this is what we want to do in the curriculum in schools because when I was a kid, I didn't have X, Y, and Z. And then there's foolish enough educators who, remember, if you're an educator today and you're passing curriculums, you grew up in the 60s movement. You grew up in the sex revolution movement. So anyone who's approving curriculum right now in California, they are a product. Chances are they are a boomer and they are a product of the sexual revolution in the 60s. And they told themselves, when I become an educator, this is what I'm going to do. And now they act as representatives of that community when no one voted them in. And what are they doing? They are pushing the envelope as much as they can. And they are saying the moment they get it into 7th grade, they're going to say, how do we get it into 6th grade?
Right.
The moment they get into 6th grade, they're going to say, well, I remember in elementary school, I had my first erection. And so maybe we should get it into the 5th graders. That is what's going to happen. And unless people in a sense, it's a lack of a better term, unless people unionize around certain ideals, certain parameters, and say, listen, this is where we draw the lines. Even the LGBTQ community, Caitlyn Jenner agrees with us. This is where we have to draw the lines. Even Caitlyn Jenner is going, hey, I'm trans, but this stuff with the kids, this is going too far, right? So you do have a subsect, but the problem is certain selects of the media, because it's not sexy conversation, they want to drown out that conversation. And then they want to say, and let's shed a light on this conversation, which is the LGBTQ community wants these level of things. So unless we begin to build some boundaries, or unless private school begins to be more affordable for people in California, and so like that's a thing that I've always been sympathetic to voting for, is the whole school choice thing. And I'm not super educated, well-rounded on it, but I do think for a certain aspect, as a person who doesn't want to leave California. I know a lot of people want to leave California, and they are leaving California for various reasons, but I don't have any plans to leave California. I love California. I love the weather. I love, the
weather just be pulling us back in.
I love the food. I love the culture. But yes, there's a lot of unfortunate stuff about California right now. And so, I do believe that if my tax-paying dollars go towards public schools, I should either A, have a say in what happens in public schools. And it appears right now, like the parent said, what happened when you brought it to him? The woman's response was, well, I'm not up for re-election next year, so I really don't care about your opinion right now.
Right.
That's a problem. If my opinion as a parent is not valid to the school board, then I should get a choice on where my tax dollars go in terms of my kid's education. And if I wanted to go to a charter school or private school, I should be able to choose that X amount a year does not go to this public school in my district. It goes to this charter school or this private school that I want to send my kid to, and it goes towards their education. But until all of us agree as citizens and say, hey, that's what we want to do, we're going to continue to deal with these issues, because the educators are already in power. The people who are already set out to do these things,
a huge lobby in Washington. Right? There's huge lobby in Washington, and I think it was. I think the Republican Party under Trump, you brought him up, so you started it. I think he's the one that proposed that. He was for that.
He's not off limits. We don't get deplatformed if we talk about a president.
I know. I think he was for school choice, and he laid out a really good argument for school choice. So when you're voting now, like, start voting for like practical policies that are going to affect your life. Stop being deceived and tricked by these ideologies that have no bearing or influence.
Yeah, the debates of ideals.
Yeah. Focus on what is going to make your family better in the day-to-day life. What is going economy, school choice. And so school choice. I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that's a very, very important thing for young families to start to be aware of and start to be praying for and start to be asking and voting for along those lines.
But keep in mind also, and this goes way, 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 way back, at the deconstruction of the nuclear family. Because with the deconstruction of the nuclear family, you don't have, it's this big thing that's basically isolating every person in the family. You have the where it used to be that a man works and then the woman stays home and raises the children, and she's very involved in the school education and everything that goes on with the child. But then all of a sudden, there's no way that you could just afford to not have a 2-income household. So now the mothers are now at work.
Right.
And so now we don't have the ability to be as influential in our children and their education because we're working just as much as the fathers are.
Or the energy. Yeah.
Right. I am exhausted at the end of the day. And, a lot of times I have to leave it up to the education to make a lot of decisions because I am spread so thin. And unfortunately for a lot of families, and then you get into single mothers, they just don't have the ability to be as involved in the education. And that may have been done on purpose because now the education system has way more power over your children.
Yeah.
They have way more power to influence how they want society to be in the next 20 years. And unfortunately, it's because we as a family, we as a nuclear family have completely lost the power over our households.
Yeah. That's good. Well, Gabe, what do you have? And we're going to finish that Constantine conversation another day. I'm not done for that. Not today.
I'm looking forward to it.
Not today. Maybe at a lunch, we'll do it. I have a lot of issues with what you said.
Long live the king.
Let's go ahead.
The next one is about how valuable or how important is a college degree in the workforce
so it's
today.
education.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
today.
education hour.
You got the.
Hey,
theme.
well, listen up. Listen, if you got grandkids or kids, this is the day to have the conversation.
Yep.
Matter of
This
fact,
is a tough one right
pause
here.
the podcast, start it over,
Yep.
get your kids, say we're all going to watch this podcast together.
Yep.
If I were hiring someone for a position today, I would much rather hire someone who did not go to college. Why?
No shot.
100%.
Absolutely
And I do it all
not.
the time. And the reason is that the people who go to college go through 4 years and every single one of them talks and thinks and acts like a robot.
If I'm hiring somebody and I've got two equivalent candidates in front of me, and I've got a guy that was able to get his 4-year degree, that speaks volumes. I know that you can be on time. I know that you can show up every day and do what's assigned to you. I know that you have the ability to finish something. That's a hugely important thing versus somebody that shows up with no degree. If you don't have a degree, and you can make it without a degree, but you need a damn good portfolio to do that. And that is true advice for anybody working in any field. The college degree is the #1 grower of wealth inequality in the United States because people with college degrees are out earning everybody else so much.
Watch what happens
And
in the next 10 years with college degrees.
it's so important. Even other conservative-esque people like Jordan Peterson talk about, like, how do we have a society where it functions when the IQ requirements for performing well in society are becoming higher and higher and higher and higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we begin this conversation, what is your master's degree in?
What was it again? Oh,
Divinity.
Divinity.
Oh my God.
Yes,
What?
I'm a master. I'm a
Where's the
master of
camera?
all things divine.
There's your proof right there on
Listen.
how good education is.
I know everything about God. I am the master of the divine. Master of divinity.
He's a master of divinity. Oh, Lord. Can't even remember it. It's been that long. Sanaz, what is your degree in?
My master's degree is in educational counseling, so I have opinions.
Oh yeah.
I have opinions.
I did not finish my bachelor's
Yeah, and you're my
program.
boss. So let's talk about that. I have a
everybody's boss
master's
here in
degree,
this room.
and you're my boss.
You're all of our bosses. Then.
And I did not finish my bachelor's degree, which would have been in theology and apologetics, but I had 6 general ed classes still to take. And I said, I am done with this thing. And I didn't finish.
I
and
got
I
a
sit on the
bachelor-
board of university as well. So, hey,
I have a-
shiver me
yeah.
timbers.
Yeah, you're like Catch Me If You Can. What's his name? What's his name?
Tom Hanks.
No, the Leonardo DiCaprio
character.
DiCaprio character.
Yeah, the little the shyster.
Yeah.
But I also did a bachelor of English literature, and that's where most of my critique comes from, like just personal experience.
Yeah.
About this whole.
What was your
issue.
bachelor's in?
Sociology, with an emphasis in
Yeah, that was a waste.
social
No.
deviance.
Oh yeah. Golly.
Was it-
Let's
wasn't
do
a-
education hour. Nancy, you have a master's, right?
Yes.
Let's jump in. This is going to be a great conversation for everyone.
Boy,
I
I'm
know.
so
What's
passionate
it's an
about this one.
educated bunch in here.
So
Nancy.
I know,
my
we do.
bachelor's was in business administration, with an emphasis in, I'm using this, okay, with an emphasis in visual and media studies. And then my master's was in sports management because I thought I was going to go into sports broadcasting.
Look.
Oh,
and now
wow.
you manage me. So there we go. You have. I'm not an
Yeah.
athlete, but it's close enough.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Chelsea, did you? What, you have a bachelor's, right, Chelsea?
Yeah,
What's
I
your-
got my degree in communications with an emphasis in media studies
Hey,
and
look,
then
you're
minor
using
in
it
Bible.
right now. And a minor in Bible.
Yeah.
Gabriel, our director, you have a degree too, I think. What is yours in? Give us a black back lean.
Yeah, my yeah.
Let me see your face.
Hey, yeah. So my my bachelor's is in thank you.
You're welcome.
My bachelor's is in biblical languages.
Whoa, Yeshua HaMashiach.
Say it in Hebrew.
I didn't know you can get a bachelor's.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't
you can
either.
at the Master's University.
Oh my! Is it accredited?
Well,
Well, it might not be. But,
You got to come back in 5 years.
okay.
right.
now that we got our introductions out of the way,
What was the point of that?
Just to show
everyone's aware
that Adam is everyone's boss and he has the least education.
Got you.
Get your wheels turning.
Because
You
we
have a
all
degree?
have
You have a
something to
degree?
say. That's why.
Got it.
Listen, if you put that math together, I mean, I can't blame you. But that was my money.
well, hold on. Okay, so let me talk about this for a second because when I went to college, I paid $700 a semester for Cal State Long Beach. $700.
Was that like in 1945?
Oh, come on.
Sanaz knows how.
It was about 20 years ago. I look good. Thank you, Botox.
She calls me
so
a child.
it's okay. I know. I'm 10 years older than my boss brother who does not have a degree. Yes. So,
That's it.
$700 a semester.
That's what hard work and hustle will get you, friends.
So that's my take on it because listen, there's a few factors when it comes to whether or not you should go to college. Number one is the cost. And that's a huge factor. People go to college and they take out these loans and they don't realize how long you're going to be paying that off and how much interest you pay off before you even pay the principal. They don't tell you these things.
No.
And so all of a sudden
They encourage it.
They encourage it and they put you into debt for a degree that you will have and you will be paying for the next 30 to 50 years.
A degree you most likely won't even
not even use. So I paid when I went to college I graduated, I think in 2004. Thank you.
Wow.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Oh, wow. My goodness. A little too excited about that one. I was paying I paid out of pocket. I paid in cash. Okay. You were watching Teletubbies?
Oh gosh, please.
No, I was in school learning about what we just talked about in the 7th grade.
And he was getting practical practice on that.
So I only took a loan out for my second year of grad school, and I was able to pay that off at later on. But I'm debt free when it comes to that. But that is not the case right now because I think USC, and I understand I went to Cal State Long Beach, but USC right now, I was just talking to my brother about this the other day, is over $60,000 a year for tuition for USC. And people want that experience, but not realizing that 4 years of USC, unless you have some type of a scholarship, you're talking about $240, if I'm doing the math right, $240,000 that you are in debt for a 4-year degree. And then that leads me to my second point.
My sister-in-law has like 80 grand debt. Who has debt in here in school?
Yeah.
Chelsea, Jermaine, Gabe.
Yes. And she had scholarships too, I think, too.
I had scholarships.
Now raise your hand if you feel like it was worth it, like to have that debt, to get the loans.
Mine, because I'm not that much in debt.
I'm not raising
like
my hand.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So you get to this point too where a lot of degrees right now, this is the conversation that they were having in the video. Do I hire somebody without a degree or do I hire somebody with a degree? And the problem is that a bachelor's degree will not get you much. Right. You have to have an advanced degree for a very specific job, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a therapist, these things that require a master's degree or more. But for a lot of everyday jobs now in technology and things like that, you don't necessarily need the degree. You do need a specific type of hustle. You do need maybe a trade. You do need some type of skill that you can go to a program or you can learn or you can start volunteering your time and things like that. But it's not necessary to have a degree, and you have to outweigh, does the cost of the loans that I'm going to be taking, is that going to benefit me? And now you got to decide what you want to be when you're 18 years old, when the world's going to completely change in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's the issue that they're having right now.
I think one of my biggest issues with college is that a kid at 17 and 18 years old is supposed to be able to pick when they're supposed to be able to pick their whole future by time their freshman year. And sometimes you can delay and, okay, by 19, I have to decide my major. And you can't even rent a car till you're 25. You can't even, smoke a cigarette till you're 21. But by the time I was 17 or 18, and so what do kids end up doing most of the time? Because we know now psychologically our brains aren't even fully developed till 25 right now in like our current structure of society. So 25 is when your actual cognitive ability finalizes its development. So a kid who's 18 is given a list of degrees, unless you had really, really great parents or you had immigrant parents who were like, I'm coming to this country and you're going to make bread and you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, and they push that on you. So if you don't have that, if you don't have a family that pours that into you or an immigrant family that says, hey, this is an expectation, then what's going to happen is a kid is going to look at a list of things and they're going to say, well, that looks fun. That's how they're going to make their decision. That looked fun. And so you have a bunch of kids who are graduating with degrees that are like in arts and sciences, you know, and in the level of, oh, I studied comms in the sense of how to write a paper. That's what I studied. Or what I studied you go to these big schools like Scripps and Harvey Mudd, and you go over to USC. You have people who are studying feminism degrees with an emphasis on Hispanic culture in Guatemala. Like that's what their degree is. It's so specific that you're going, where are you going with that thing? Like you're not. But in the moment, no one got. So all these universities, because at the end of the day, most universities, all they're concerned with is enrollment. That's it. They'll give you a degree. My wife told me one of her full semester elective classes at University of Florida was Intro to Bowling. And she got a B in it. Right. It was Intro to Bowling. She learned bowling. You know, like, so a lot of universities, they would let you study snails and how fast
as long as you're giving them the money.
As long as you give them the money and as long as you quote unquote feel like your purpose is being fulfilled. Great. That's what they're going to do. So the problem is with universities and obviously the federal loan programs, which are increasingly giving young people loan. A young person cannot buy a car that's more than $30,000, but yet they can get a loan for school over $150,000 by the time they're 21 with a 10 to 20% interest rate on it. It's absolutely ludicrous what's going on right now. And so to me, university school is great if you can be lucky enough to find the pocket that at 19 years old, you know where you're headed, or you feel like you're called to ministry and you want to study Bible. That's going to work great for you. You want to go into business. So that's why I always say, whether you like it or not, find the safest things. Study counseling, psychology. You could go into education. Study business. You can everything you're going to do is all like
a tent maker. Like Paul was a tent maker.
Find some
sort of trade or skill. And that's the thing. A lot of these degrees that are wasted that don't pay off once you graduate are the liberal arts specifically. It depends on what your focus is, whether it's going to be worth it for you. And you talk about doctors, lawyers, and all that. Yes, but yes. You need a master's in those, but you also need a prerequisite 4 years bachelor degree in order to attain that master's. You can't just go into that field. So you still need the 4 years. My problem with college and university specifically is the first 2 years is basically you finding yourself and basically wasting your money on general ed classes that you're not going to do anything with the rest of your life. And it's all to make them rich and fill their pocketbooks. But my thing is, I think to be wiser, if I were to do it over again, this is how I'm going to raise my kids at least. Encourage them and get them started on a trade and a skill when they're in high school so that they're going into college focused on something that's actually going to bring value to the world. You know, and by having that better, clear focus, you know, you can pick your classes better. You know, maybe start out at a community college because those are cheaper. Do your general ed studies at a community college because that's going to save you money, and then transfer to a university where you focus on your main degree. But my biggest gripe with university is just the fluff that they require you to take, and this whole mindset of like, come to college to have fun, university party, and just and figure yourself out for 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's fine if your parents are paying 100% of your tuition and you have the freedom to do that, and you're not going to be putting yourself in debt once you graduate. Your parents just pay for all of it. Great. Like, you can afford to do that. But I think, and I think hustle culture is very good for teenagers right now. TikTok and social media, it's encouraging this hustle culture. And I think that's good because, I'm hearing, I was talking to a father at church, and he was like, man, my son's already like focused. He's I think 16 years old. He's like focused on engineering.
Real estate license already.
Like, yeah, he's already wanting to get his license, become an engineer. Like, he's focused. I'm like, man, like, I think that needs to be how it's done, because the competition is only going to increase. Yeah. And I think you need to like work on, I think that's what Musk's point is too, why he tends to hire
Elon Musk won't hire someone that got a 4.8. At least from what I heard, he won't hire someone that got a 4.0 in college.
Right.
Because he doesn't believe if you got a 4.0 that you were well-rounded in school.
Well, here's the question when it comes to the video. You have two applicants with the same skill set. One has a degree, one doesn't. What do you say in that perspective when they have the same skill set? They're both well-rounded. One has a degree and one doesn't. It's a competition. At that point, you're all of our bosses. Does the degree affect, if they have the same skill set, affect your decision-making in any way? And I think that's the question that they're asking in this video.
You have to understand, too, that college... the man was saying that a person with a 4-year degree has proven that they can start something and finish it. But there's a lot of other factors involved.
Most a lot of college students I know are bums.
Well, that's the thing. You're talking about the parents. The parents paid for it. Somebody who's a full-time.
But I'm talking about that's not the case. I'm talking about they have the same skill set. You have two awesome applicants. One has a degree, one doesn't. What then do you do? That's what I want to tackle.
Well, I think it's super particular on the field, depending on the field of what it is, and depending on what they can produce. I mean, at the end of the day, for me and for a lot of people I know who are business owners, they are looking for a person that can produce. College is not a natural indicator whether that person is going to be able to produce or not. In 2022, it's not. So when I'm hiring someone, if I had two people, and again, depending on what it is I'm hiring for, so if I'm hiring for a pastoral position, yes, I mean, if they went to school and studied Bible, they're going to have a faster track in our process of some responsibilities in that sense. But does that guarantee them as a hire, as opposed to a guy in my church who's been faithful for 10 years, who leads some of our biggest programs, who has seen the gifted? Well, at the end of the day, no, they're pretty equal. And at the end of the day, I'm going to now make a decision on who do I believe can produce the most, who will have the greatest work ethic, because having a degree doesn't necessarily prove that you have work ethic.
Oh, I agree, because half my friends that have degrees, I'm like, what? Yeah, it doesn't show for it. But I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater and say college is dumb, because for me, I feel like in my particular field, it did teach me a lot, including work ethic. So I'm just saying, like, depending, I think it's the person, I think it's the field, I don't think it's college. I don't think it's a university necessarily, depending on the person and depending on the field.
Here's the thing. I'm completely aware that the average person does not have as much work ethic as me to say that they didn't finish school, 100%. But yet is very well financially. I have ownership in multiple companies. I sit on a lot of boards. Well, that was because of my work ethic and my ability to learn outside of university. Yeah. But the average person,
not everybody has that.
No. So that's why I do think college is good. It's great. It also allows a young person to develop in the safety confines of a school and a university. I enjoyed my Christian school experience because it developed, for me at least as a Christian, I did at the end of the day, even sometimes in it, I didn't like it. But as I've grown older now, I enjoyed the chapel experiences. I enjoyed the camaraderie with my dorm mates. It did grow me up in certain areas. But that was all stuff that is natural impliers of the university system, because everyone is going there to live there. Not every university particularly cares about your experience in that way. Yeah. They care about that experience for you to just come back next year. Yeah. But all in all, like they really are just worrying about how to get as many students to enroll as possible. And then there are some great private universities who go, no, we really do want to educate students and we really want them to be well-rounded, but the likelihood and that happening isn't always aware. So I think more universities need to leave out we just need to increase enrollment and need to say, what are we doing for these students
to set them up well?
Yeah. And a lot of times all they'll do is like, they'll hire a guy in that field to come in and speak and say, look, you can make a living off of this thing. And it's like, for him, he's one of the rarest people to be able to make that job, or her. She's like, not everyone's going to be able to, study butterflies and get a full-time job where you could buy a house off that job. But they bring in the one person who's been able to do it and say, see, kids, like it's possible. Yeah. So it's not always, but I think the university and the college experience is big for personal development, but I do not think it's a guarantee or a job. And I do think you have to think about money going into it.
Yeah. I think I'm coming from this perspective because my little sister is in the process. She's in her second year of college. So my dad is helping guide her on decisions that she should make financially. Do we go to a private university? Do you spend all this money? Do you get your general ed somewhere else? So he's teaching my little sister, who I know has a tough time finishing things, has a tough time making decisions. He's under his guidance, though I know that's very rare for a lot of people, helping her, developing skills that I believe is going to help her in the workplace. How to make the right decisions, how to stick something through, how to not quit when you're tired of it. So I think it goes back to the person and the situation, whether or not college is worth it.
When I was a high school counselor, I agree with you, Caleb, in the sense that I would always, and then the school didn't really like this because even high schools, they like to put on their little poster board, look at how many of our kids are going to four-year universities, not caring how much they're spending. Right. But my recommendation always was to say, please go to a two-year community college first, because when you get a four-year degree, it does not say how long you were at that four-year university. Yeah. It just has the name. Go to a two-year university first. Two-year community college first. And then you get a list of all the different classes and requirements that you have to take to get your general ed associate's degree. Take as broad of a bank of classes. For myself, when I went to community college, I took a class my last semester before transferring, and I changed my major because that class particularly made me so interested in that subject that I actually changed my major before transferring over.
Mine was opposite. I was going to major in psychology. I took intro to psychology. I was like,
and you didn't like it. No. But that's why, imagine if you had already gone to you were going to a four-year university. Yeah. So now you've got to go back and change it. Well, you go to a junior college and you take all these different types of social sciences, all these different types of sciences, and all of these things. And then you can make that decision, then transfer to a two-year, and then now you're only paying for 2 years of a university. What I also did when I was a school counselor is I would do this with every student, because I do know you don't know what you want to be when you're 17. Exactly. In fact, they say that every 7 years you pretty much change your interests. So even at 25, you could say, I'm really interested in this. And at 32, you could decide to have a completely different trajectory for what your career might be. And that's fair, because every 7 years you have a completely different interest. But what I would do is I would say, tell me about all of your interests. What do you like? What are you interested in? Then we would see what different types of professions you could use those interests in. Then we would see what type of education that you need for the jobs, for the interests that you have. Then we would start looking at the colleges. Then we basically would work backwards, because nobody worked backwards with the kids. They would say, you have to go to college, and then you have to decide what you want to be, and then you've got to figure it out. Now you have all these loans. But looking at, these are the different things I'm interested in. These are the different careers I could have. These are the different education options that we have. Let's go down some road that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, they have some programs like that in high school. I mean, that's how, I mean, like, you know, my parents, I didn't have, you know, my dad to tell me, hey, this is the route you should go, or this is what you should do. I was pretty much like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, let me just figure it out. And they do have programs in high school that you can take. I mean, you have to apply for them. I don't know if you guys have heard of Avid.
Yeah.
And so they have those classes where, what Sanaz, what you were saying, where they tell you, hey, let's do a test. Let's figure out what career you want to go into. And I think that's very helpful, even though obviously I use that for the bachelor period, not for my master's period. But that I think is super helpful, especially for someone that doesn't have those examples in their lives to tell you and guide you, hey, this is, you know, what you should do.
I think gone are the days of us telling 18-year-olds you have to have your entire life figured out.
Yeah.
Which
I don't think we've ever told them that, though.
As a former high school and college counselor, I could tell you these kids would come with crippling anxiety because they felt like as soon as they graduated, even to the point.
But were you telling them that, though? Or
I wasn't telling them that. I think,
but that just came from their own.
No, like even.
No, I mean, I think it's implied. If you're going to
implied.
get debt for school and you're going to have to pick a degree that you're told has to pay off your direct.
You better know what you want to do.
These kids in high school had so much anxiety because at the time, I don't know how it is now, but at the time, even to get into a California State University, not even a UC, a CSU, like Long Beach or CSUN, you had to have a 3.8 or above. And it was so competitive to even be accepted into a four-year university. You had to be a part of 3 different extracurricular activities. You had to play a sport. You had to take all honors classes just to be able to get into college. So you had to know what you wanted to be, because the schools were even saying, we only have so many spots for these departments
at 18.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I would have 15-year-olds going into sophomore year that would come to me and feel, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but I know that I have to start now.
Yeah.
And it was really depressing as a counselor to have to now try to guide them that way, because their parents and their teachers and everybody else is telling them it's either this or you're going to be a loser for the rest of your life. And then I have to, on the mental health aspect, counsel them to say, this is not the end all be all. If you don't know what you want to be, it's okay.
Right, but also throughout human history, like, this is a fairly new thing, like the whole Arrested Development, like. In history, like, you started working like pretty young, and you were an apprentice to your father or to a person in the community, and you worked with them like from the age of like 12 or 11. And so also we're in this unique, weird time too, where, yes, I get what you're saying, but also I think it's also important to realize that education has to be better from childhood. There should be more of a focus on engineering. And basically what that is, there should be more of a focus on practical problem solving.
Critical thinking.
There you go, Caleb.
We're on this
not wasting 16 years of your life. No, I'm just kidding. But there should be like, because like, it's like, you know, all of the history that we learned, all of the science that we learned, and all. I mean, it never came to reality, and I think that's what the whole point of what he was saying was about focusing more on engineering. Is you're focusing on problem solving, you're focusing on creation, you're focusing on things that actually make the world a better place, that are practical, and we don't do enough of that in school. We used to do wood shop. We used to have wood shop. We used to do auto shop.
Ceramics.
We used to do.
I was in wood shop.
Yeah, but in the time, those were like practical things that life skills.
You could even do
life skills, right?
T-shirt making,
even cooking for women.
For women.
Home ec was what it was called.
Well, yeah, that would be problematic today.
But the point is that they were life skills that we used to be taught. We're not taught life skills anymore in school.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that there are some countries, maybe Mexico, that general education ends at like 12. And then high school is more of like a
as a Mexican.
Okay. Who grew up in Mexico? I
grew up in Rancho Cucamonga.
Same.
No, but you are right. I don't think it's Mexico. I think it's England. I think you start university at 16.
Yeah, it's like a
England.
specialized.
Yeah.
It's high schools technically. But
Costa Rica. Okay.
Okay.
See. Alizé
yes,
for the
and
win.
so you stop taking those general ed classes, and you start taking specialized classes based off of your interest.
At like 15, 16. Yeah.
So trigonometry is out the door, but you know, if you're going to be, if you want to do like engineering or whatnot, you go into the engineering department and you take, you know, STEM classes.
Here's what I'm doing, like Caleb just brought up faithfully. Here's my
it's good advice.
Here's what I'm doing right now. My son, who's 4.5 years old, he has the right to live in whatever la la land that he wants to live. So he wants to come home. He wants to build Legos. He wants to go in the backyard. He wants to roll around in dirt. He has the freedom to do whatever he wants. But the day that he turns 6 years old, now hear me out, okay? Because parents, what do? Like all parents, we say, oh, you got to do your homework. We say you got to be in a sport. So right now, my son's in soccer. He goes to practice, once or twice a week. He has to go to a game. We don't give him an option on that. He don't got a choice. Every day he comes home, he has to put his shoes upstairs. He don't get a choice on that. That's us developing him and putting parameters and chores and to develop him, right? So there's a couple things that I'm doing is when he turns 6, anytime he wants to get on his iPad, he has to do 30 minutes of an educational app on his iPad. And so whether it's coding, whether it's some type of engineering program, whether it's some type of mathematics, but it has to be in his iPad. It has to be a learning app. He has to spend 30 minutes doing it anytime he touches his iPad. Anytime he wants to touch anything digital. If he wants to go on the Nintendo, 30 minutes on your iPad, educational thing that's going to develop your mind. That's going to increase critical thinking. That's going to hopefully raise your IQ.
Yeah. I think that's great.
And then the second thing is I have him on the wait list for the Synthesis program, which is Elon Musk's company that he co-invested in. And what it is it's a program that you pay a few $100s a month. It starts at age 6, so that's why I have him on the wait list for it right now. They only let a certain amount of kids in, and you could be 7, 8, 9, 10, and they start as a cohort, and the kids like twice a week have to jump on a Zoom call, and there's an educator that administers critical thinking, problem solving, and all the kids as a group through Zoom, they have to figure out the problem. So the problem for the day may be you guys just became rulers of your own country, and you guys have to figure out how to get food to all the people in your country. Cool. And so one kid has to throw the idea out, I think we need crops. And so they'll build on, through the program, they'll build crops. And then another kid says, well, but we need farmers to tend the crops. And then so another kid becomes the farmer. And so you do this twice a week, and you move with this cohort of kids all across America, and you move with them as they continue in the Synthesis program. And so it's about an hour to 2 hours a week. And so that's one of the things that my son's going to be a part of. And then my youngest son, Thomas, is going to be a part of. I think they have to sit a certain age. And to me, as a parent, whatever age that you decide they need to start doing sports, whatever age that you decide they need to start doing whatever time you want to give them responsibilities. I also think in today's age, if you want them to have a head on the curve and you want them to be financially successful, where they don't have to make huge decisions, where they have to make impending debt on their life just to kind of finish a 4-year school, then we have to take the responsibility as the tradesmen teachers, like you just said. Yeah. Like we have to pull. So for my son, if he says, I want to start a YouTube channel, well, guess what? It's dad's responsibility that I got to get you, I'm going to get you the camera, and I'm going to help develop you and trade you. And in 2 years, he may say, man, that really wasn't my thing. Okay, well, we're going to help you find that, because right now, especially if you're a person of color, you're told right now, if you're a black person right now, you're told figure it out in sports. If you're a black kid in America, 90% of them are told, go sports.
Oh, okay.
That's what you got to do. You want to go to university? That's what my wife was told as a black woman. That's what my sister-in-law was told as a black woman. Go to soccer. You want your education paid for? And then if you're in an Indian or Asian family, they say go towards mathematics, go sciences, go get scholarships and everything. So we do have a problem per culture and per family that kind of just dictates. And right now, for majority of minorities and Hispanics in general, they have a very low college enrollment rate, period, because the parents don't find it to be as important. So we do have a big disconnect in the education system on just letting the educators do the educating, which is a mess. I just heard of a student that went to a Cal State, and on his, I think it was her first day of school, when they take the freshman seminar classes, she was given a piece of paper that said, the first thing she has to do when she gets to the dorms is she has to ask everyone in her dorm what their gender is. And has to refer
how
to
they
them,
would like to be
how
identified.
they would like to be identified. The next thing is that if you did anything like dead naming, which dead naming is if you identify as trans and you say, hey, this is my new name, if you called them by their old name, even on accident, you will be disciplined by the dean. And they got this big list, and then they had to then write a paper that said how they were going to be LGBT inclusive as a student at the Cal State. They had to do that. All freshman students at Cal State.
It's a religion.
So I know we keep getting to this thing, but it's what we're seeing. It's education. It's where we're seeing it. And so for me, I just think someone that's thinking about going to college, or you have a student in college, I highly lean towards going to a very strong Christian school. That's why I sit on the board of Life Pacific University. Shout out.
And
plug.
our church is a part of a great Christian school, just to point that out.
We have a Christian school at our church.
Yeah.
And our church is associated with the university. I sit on the board. I sit on that board even as a person who didn't fully finish education, because I do believe that the best option is to go to college and university for your future. I think you have to be mindful about what you major in, but it is like the guy said. He said it is the best next step to financial making a life of financial prowess, unless you meet a kid that has complete determination and drive that can do this thing without college. Then great. Okay.
Yeah, like Chelsea said, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's truth to both of those perspectives.
They both were right, even though one was trying to be right and then one was. I'll hire someone with a degree and without. It just depends on
the person's character, the person's you have to.
So that's why for me, I think if you're a Christian, you should highly push your kids in the direction, unless it's something super specialized like UCLA Film School or something like that, into a Christian school, because what's happening right now in like the state programs and state universities, even in other states outside of California, it is getting very messy. And what the professors are trying to teach to young kids who are very impressionable. Just think about it. For your whole life, most teachers in high school, they are pretty censored and limited for the most part in what they can say, how involved they can be in a student's life. And then parents to their kids, it's just they roll their eyes. They go, oh, this is mom and dad. So the next most influential person that's going to be in their life is going to be their college professors and teachers. Those will be the ones who speak the most.
Absolutely.
And if most of these state schools and liberal arts schools, a lot of those teachers do have a mission that are anti-Christ, that are atheistic in nature, and they do that. Many of them go on the record and say, it is my goal that if I get a Christian student, they won't do it for a Muslim student, they won't do it for a Jewish student because they'll get canceled, but for a Christian student, it is my goal to tear down their ideology, and it's gonna make it a mission for me to tear that down. So I think more than ever, that's why I sit on the board of Christian University, Christian education. And even Jordan Peterson just said this. They said, hey, if you could blame the guilt on why America is in such a decay right now, morally and ethically, if you could blame one thing or one person, who would it be? Would it be a politician? Would it be a president? He said it is the American collegiate system is the number one reason for moral decay in America. And so that's why I do sit on the board for a Christian university, because I hear that and I go, man, I think that's right. I believe that's true. And so I'm going to do my part. I'm going to try to, if my son wants to go to college, I'm going to highly encourage him in Christian education. And if he doesn't, we'll figure it out. But that's what I'm going to do, because I do not want to trust a 4-year liberal arts university who has it their goal to not make him look like his dad. That's one of their goals.
Yeah, right.
Then that's not something I feel super comfortable with.
I wasn't a Christian when I was in college, and I look back and I think about, as we're talking about, I was a nothing. I was. I mean, I was.
Right?
I identify.
I just want to make it clear.
In the same sense of like the Christians that only go to church on Christmas, I was that. I mean, I never opened up
Catholic
a Quran.
Christians who never go to Catholic church, but you did identify as Muslim.
Yes.
Just want to put it out there. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that makes us more relatable.
Right. So
our neighborhood Iranian over here.
So when I went to college, I was extremely liberal, and I remember now looking back on it because it didn't faze me when I was in college. But I look at the teachers and even the classes that I took, and I think back now that I have clarity in my eyes, and now that I've grown up and I, have a little bit of sense in my life, there was absolutely an agenda, an agenda, and whether it was at the top level or not, I could tell you that these professors had the freedom to say and do whatever they wanted to do. And I'm thinking particularly about a couple of them, and I'm like, how were they allowed to speak like that? But they were, and they did. And because, I was a part of the, on that side, I was just like, cool, this is cool, but.
Yeah.
No. And that was in the early 2000s.
This was in the early 2000s.
Muslims were really demonized too.
I don't even want to know. I mean, I remember being.
People would know you as a Middle Eastern back then, right?
Yeah, I was in college during 9/11. That's a story for another day. But I remember being on campus at Cal State Long Beach during 9/11. So we can talk about that.
And everyone just looked at you in school.
It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild.
Sanaz Vasegi.
I
know. That's no mistaking that.
That was.
I remember there was.
Rough.
I mean, not to get too far off the conversation, but I remember being in class and I squared up to this guy, squared up. And because he was talking, he was probably a little bit more conservative. I was in a very liberal class.
Not to make it a race thing, but it's always good for my storytelling. What race was he?
He was a very Caucasian man.
Okay. Just helps the story flow for me.
I don't want to judge him, but he was very Caucasian.
Corey gets mad at that, but I always want to know the race of everyone in each story.
So what had happened was 9/11 was on a Thursday, I believe. And so this class was on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so classes were canceled on 9/11. We went back on that Tuesday. The Tuesday before 9/11, our instructor had asked us she would take roll, and she said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Write your name on this piece of paper and then tell me what this is. And she held up an American flag. And so by the time the paper came around to me, people were writing like a tissue, just a flag, it means nothing. This is what the answers were for what an American flag was. She then taught about symbolism. That was what we talked about that day. This was a social psychology class. Then 9/11 happened on Thursday, and then we come back to class on Tuesday. She walks in, she holds the American flag, and she says, take out a piece of paper. Now what is this? And so how we shifted our perspective on what it was and what it is now after 9/11. So then we start talking about it, and then this guy starts talking about Middle Easterns. So this was 2 weeks shy of my 21st birthday. So I was I was aggressive. I was, offended.
Much louder than you are now.
Much louder than I am now. And I'm using my inside voice right now.
Your brain wasn't fully developed.
I know.
You weren't 25 yet.
So I squared up to this guy, and, my teacher was loving it because she was like, she wrote really big on the book, like let's discuss, but not realizing that like I'm about to go to jail because I'm about to have this conversation with this guy. I remember telling my dad this story, and
Papa?
Oh, Papa Ben. He's the best.
What did he say?
I remember telling growing up, my dad had always been like, you are so proud to be an Iranian. This is like the most beautiful culture.
And he's the type that wears a button-up shirt with his chest hair coming out, the button down to his belly button. Papa Ben is an OG. Yeah,
Ben is something else. This guy. He had the mutton chops in the 70s and wore the platforms. He was a cool guy. He still is a cool guy. So I remember telling him the story, and I was so proud that like I stood up for myself as an Iranian. And I remember my dad just being really silent, and he said, just do me a favor. Now, remember, this is a guy who had always told me to be proud that I'm Iranian, to be screaming that from the mountaintops. And he says to me, and I'm going to cry, he says, do me a favor right now. and just don't tell anybody that you're Persian. And my heart broke because now I had to hide my identity. I had to pretend, you know, and he even told me, he's like, you're white passing. So just be white right now. And I remember just being like distraught because my parents would have to put white flags in their cars so that nobody would attack them on the freeway. It was,
oh my God,
it was just a really hard time.
Man.
And so I remember like
I feel
going
sorry
to
for what we put Muslims through during the early 2000s. That was really bad.
It was hard. And then being on college campus, I remember being torn. Like, do I scream that I'm a Middle Eastern? And again, it wasn't Persians who did this, but
to Americans,
but to Americans, Middle Eastern. If you were Middle Eastern, you were the enemy. And you know, I know a lot of cultures have felt that at some time or another, and that just happened to have been the time that's what we were going through. And I just remember being so torn, like, who am I right now? What is my identity? Who can I trust? Who can I talk to? All of those things in college. Because even though I was at a very liberal college where people were, you know, I don't know, like it was a scary time at the time. So.
And I think it's relevant to what you're saying, though. Because,
thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
That was good.
That was
First
powerful.
Of all,
yeah.
You crying is going to make a great clip for this podcast.
Oh my goodness.
Listen, I'm where I'm at because I think of business first. No, I'm just like,
you're like, oh yes, tears are
bring
coming.
it on. Bring it on.
You want tears?
You're like, oh gosh, we have a woman on the show and tears.
We got a lot of Vasquez to cry at our podcast.
Oh man, I'm sure. Well, her subject matter, that's something else.
Well, hey, look at that. No, but I think it's relevant to what you're saying because you were a 20-year-old young woman, and not only are you told to like figure yourself out in college, now you're going through like a whole cultural identity. But I think not in any correlation to 9/11, but I think that every young person in their 20s is facing that right now because I've even seen those TikToks of like a young person in college and they're like messing around with their friend, and then it's like the song is Where Did Time Go? And then because of COVID, a lot of those kids didn't really get the college experience. And then I particularly saw one kid, he was like in his college class and is his friend filming him and he's like this, and then it quickly clips and now the kid's like a construction worker. And he was like so jovial as a kid, and then his clip of him as a construction worker, he's like cleaning out the rubbish bin, and he's just like 24 years old, just looks defeated. Like, where did time go? I went through COVID, and so being completely different from your situation, but I think the sentiments and the feeling is the same. Of like a young person having to figure out their identity, and then you add something on top of it. So for you, it was this cultural experience, 9/11, but for kids nowadays, it's COVID. And so it's forcing all of them to really rethink everything. That's why right now, the universities are 3 years going. All universities are a 3-year low enrollment, 13% low. Every university is cutting budgets by tens of millions because I think young people are starting to just, I don't think they're figuring out that there's anything wrong with the education system. I think they are coming to a terms to go, wait a second. I don't know that I want things the way that it's been traditionally done. I don't know that I'm fully seeing the fruit of it, of the debt ratio to career, because the millennials are speaking loud and the millennials are like, yo, like we just want vacation or whatever, like there's that thing, there's that generational thing, right? Boomers want raises, millennials want vacation, and Gen Z want to work from home. And so that's the breakdown, right? But we're really seeing that. And so kids are making like a lot of those decisions in light of that. But I don't envy anyone who has a teenager like your dad, Chelsea, who's talking with your sister. Like, I don't envy any parent who has to have those conversations right now with that generation who just kind of feels like they missed prom, they missed getting their first car, they just feel like they missed a lot of stuff.
It's a lot. When I was a counselor, there's this one true foundation of school counseling, and that is that there's three factors. It's education, career, and social. And all three of those things are equal, and neither can exist without the other two. So in order for a well-rounded student, you have to be career-minded, you have to receive an education, and you have to have a social life. And so many people forget that social life is just as important and than the other two, and the other two cannot exist without the social.
That's good.
So you take COVID and you take all the trauma that has happened to these young people, and then you wonder why they have depression and anxiety and all these other aspects, because there has been a huge part missing from their educational system.
Yep. And just to finish that thought up, and going to the next topic.
I don't think we got time for the next topic.
Oh, we don't?
So just finish this thought
Oh,
up.
yeah.
So
That's why we should have never shut down.
Well, I agree.
Well, we're
From a
still
mental
waiting to
health
see the
perspective,
photo.
I agree.
Well, from
Well,
yeah.
for
I mean,
sure.
geez,
On that note,
yeah.
it's a mess.
On that note, Yeshua HaMashiach.
Yes,
Gabe, can you
Gabe.
translate that?
Gabe, can you give us
What
the
is it, Gabe?
Can you give us the
Yeshua.
Can you give us the Baruch Adonai Elohim?
Yeah, what is it?
you give us
Translate
that?
it.
You Shema.
Use your degree, Gabe.
Hey, hold on. Gabe, can you back up? Can you give us the
back
Shema
up, bro.
Israel
The
Let's
Shema.
see.
before we
Back up,
leave?
bro.
Shema.
Yeah, give us the Shema Israel.
They never
you probably wanna
teach you
cut
the
to your
whole
face.
thing. Oh,
Yeah.
They never teach you the whole thing for religious reasons. But I'm just kidding. It's Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Yeah, that's like the first sentence. That's
Hear
all I got.
Israel, oh, the Lord your God is your God. Something like
Okay.
that.
The Lord
Yeah,
is
there you go.
one.
Thank
There we
you.
go.
to college.
What a waste of a 4-year degree. You can't even finish a sentence in biblical languages.
They can't.
My Lord.
It's a rough one.
I took the least
bro.
of Hebrew. I took the least of Hebrew.
You just got to make the decision whether or not you want to go to
understand.
college.
I think it's great what you did. I even during my preaching, sometimes I text Gabe for word translation, so it does work.
And then we Google it.
Yeah, or use some type of app.
So we got through two topipics, huh?
Yeah,
In an hour and a half?
One less with Sanaz, because I knew that was going to happen. If you have Sanaz in and she's talking, we usually
I'm surprised we got to two.
It was riveting.
It was great.
Yeah.
Love the story
Oh,
at the end. It made it.
Sanaz,
it made it.
you
Thank
were
you.
such an amazing
Yes,
contributor.
Come back.
Our Middle Eastern contributor officially.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yes.
so
We're
much.
very diverse on this podcast.
Yes.
I love it.
We want to
This
have
is just like our church.
We want to have you back on. We
Right.
got to
Thank
still talk
you.
about Iran
Yeah.
and the civil
Yep.
rights thing happening in Iran
Yeah.
right now,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
crazy.
Yep.
I know you're really passionate about it. So anyone
Sure.
follow Sanaz on social media and find out about what's happening in Iran. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe on our podcast on all platforms to continue to make us the #1 Christian conversation, racially diverse podcast in America.
Yes.
Hallelujah. The more specific you get, the more you can stick to #1. So don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Android, all the sorts. And additionally, we got some other great stuff coming for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.